Hey everyone, welcome to the Fortress of Solitude podcast. I'm your host, Sergio Pereira, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. He actually is so cool that this guy is one of the best voice artists I've ever heard around. Like, I'm serious. I'm not just kissing his ass here because he's on our podcast, but he's so cool. He's already worked with the likes of McDonald's, National Geographic, Fisher-Price, AT&T, and he's also does some really cool like comic book stuff in between. Like he's done some good Batman voice, some Joker voice as well on Twitter. I'm talking about Robb Moreira. What is up, Rob?
What's happening, brother? Man, that is one hell of an intro. Thank you.
I have to be honest here. I mean, I'm selling you to the audience here, man. I'm selling you. You are that good. I mean, I've heard your stuff. And it's so awesome, you know, to see what you actually do. And I like especially your Batman stuff that you've done, like some of those little tidbits you do on Twitter. And I'm seriously still campaigning. I'm telling you now, HBO Max, the next Batman series, you better be Batman.
I hope so. I really hope so. I mean, I'm getting out there, and they keep they finally got out of the Conroy era, which is nice. Yes. And they've been giving a lot of different actors a chance. I'm like, come on, man, just get my hat in there. At least let me just get it in the ring.
Exactly. And I mean, the thing is, I love Kevin Conroy. I mean, he's the voice of Batman. Nothing will ever change. It's like Mark Hamill. He's the voice of Joker. We know that. Nothing will change it. But you know what? It's time to actually give some fresh voices, something different. I mean, otherwise we're just living in nostalgia all the time. And I mean, that
exactly.
It's time to move forward.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
But speaking of which, something very interesting is that today we'll be discussing something related to Batman. Let's just say it's caused a bit of controversy on the internet for, I'd probably say, like the last 4 years, I'd say, because even before this movie came out, it was like you could not go on a thread without seeing hate, without seeing people defending it. It's like we are talking about the Snyder Cut of Justice League.
Yeah. Probably one of the most polarizing topics on Twitter I think I've ever really seen. The divisiveness just on one film has been incredible. It's been incredible to see how it all's kind of unraveled.
And it's crazy because it was even before the film had even started. I remember the stage when they were like filming it. So I think it was in 2016 after Batman vs. Superman came out. And it started then. It was under the spotlight. That was it.
Right.
And it just, you couldn't go a day without, this story breaking out, that story breaking out. And I mean, it's well known now. I mean, we know that film was met with tons of problems in production. Right. I mean, we know that, Warner Brothers decided to put their fingers in every little pie that they were doing there and, getting people involved and, sidelining Snyder a little bit. And obviously the whole thing with Joss Whedon taking over and Snyder having to step away because of family tragedy. But after all of that, the film came out and it was like, it was... After all of that, I think it was the thing was most disappointing about that was like after all that build up, after all those conversations on like, Twitter and, you see all that hype and you go into the cinema and you're like, okay, is this what we've been fighting about?
Was that it? That is so true. That. Yeah, that is so true. I mean, there was so much activity surrounding the film and it was equal parts hype and equal parts hate and equal parts expectations of something big or something bad or I mean there was just so much floating around it that it unfortunately worked against the film, regardless of whether regardless of your opinion it being good or bad, it was not good for the film because it hyped it up. So it either hyped it up in a bad way or hyped it up in a good way. Regardless, there was so much hype that then you finally see the movie and you're like, this is what everybody was freaking out about?
Exactly. I think, if we had to compare it to like a 2000 sort of comic book movie, like before, you had the likes of the Dark Knight and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it would be like a perfectly serviceable movie, if you want to put it that way. It's like, there's nothing great about it. There's nothing special about it. It just, it's there, it's like, it's easy to follow. It's nothing special, but I think that's the problem. And I think that's what kind of led people to, call for the Snyder Cut. And it was like, everyone's like, no, come on, we want to see this director's like vision. Come on, Warner Brothers, you've done disservice to Zack here. We want to see what he wanted to do. And I mean, I've always said, this has always been a difficult thing about the Snyder Cut. And the thing that I've got a little bit of apprehension about was that the movie that he made in 2016 was already changed from his original vision. Because when he went to go record it, they had already rewritten the script. They had already canned the plans effectively for Justice League 2. Right. So I always thought, okay, will it be his authentic vision? But I was like, you know what, regardless, let's just see a movie that he filmed from beginning to end with the script that he got, and let's see what happens. And when it came out, I'll be honest, I was kind of surprised that it actually happened so soon. I had no doubt that the Snyder Cut was going to be released at some point, but I did not expect it to be coming out, especially now. And with him wanting, it was just, I didn't feel that okay, now's not the time, they're kind of trying to move away. It really did surprise me. I mean, what is your feelings about it, Rob? How did you feel when you saw, it's coming on HBO Max? What the hell?
Honestly, it was interesting. Overall, it's amazing how strong the calling for the Snyder Cut became the sooner we got to it releasing, and it was interesting because it really just became a there's people who just absolutely dislike the idea of it, and they think it's ridiculous, and that quote unquote fanboys are hanging on to a dream. And then you had those that are genuine fans that were absolutely confident that this cut existed. And then when Jason Momoa came out and said, guys, I saw it, it exists, it just added so much, it just cemented so much more the fact that this existed. But because it added more weight to now what these fans were claiming, and now it makes it that much more real, then you had those that were against it. They had to double down on their own hatred of the idea and just start spewing more nonsense, saying no, it's stupid, nobody knows what you're talking, whatever the case may be. So it just got to a really, it became a really bad powder keg. Now, when finally it said it's happening. Now, me personally, I never really sat on either side. For me, I was kind of okay, Justice League is a flick. It came out. I enjoyed it for what it was. I wouldn't say it was a masterpiece, but I dug it. I had fun. My kids liked it. That's kind of how I gauge the movie. If it's semi-entertaining, my kids have fun, then cool. We had a good time. So that's kind of how I walk into the movie. I'm not looking to be blown away. If I am, then great. That makes that experience that much more. But I'm not walking into a movie to be whoa, this is the next Citizen Kane. Yeah. So when it finally happened, and they said, it's happening, and it's happening on HBO Max. Now, again, this is me coming from a place where I was cool, it's out. I dug it, whatever. When the news broke, I looked at my wife and I was holy crap, the Snyder Cut is real and HBO got it. Whoa. I was even kind of surprised and amazed that this was actually happening. I was man, they pushed for it. And it's happening, and it's coming out, and we're going to get to see what this is. And I actually got excited. And I never thought I would have, prior to, I never thought I was swayed in either way until the news came. And then I was man, I'm kind of excited. I want to see the Snyder Cut now.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the same way I feel about it. If it had ended there, it was a bit sad, I'll be honest, that, Zack didn't get to finish the film originally, the one that came out to theaters. I was disappointed about that. But I was okay, cool. If we move on from this and, that's it, it's cool. Let's just look forward. Let's not look back. Right. Let's carry on. But at the same time, when it came out, I was this is great. This is fantastic for fandom. And wherever you stand on it, it's it doesn't impact you. If you really want to watch, this is great. If you're on the fence, you're probably going to watch it anyways. And it's something which you mentioned there, which is kind of interesting. And it's something I think we'll discuss a little bit, later on about, hatred towards and stuff like that. But you mentioned something very interesting. It's I don't know why people have to suck the joy out of it. When people are excited about it coming out. And it's something which I've got a fundamental problem, and I'm going to call it out on this podcast. I'm going to call him out about it because I strongly believe he needs to be called out for it. It's comic book writer Dan Slott. I don't know what it is. I don't know what Snyder did to him. I don't know what happened. Like this dude had just like every time he says, he doesn't enjoy the movies. He said he enjoyed Man of Steel. He hated Batman vs Superman. He just liked Justice League. That's cool, dude. You're entitled to your own opinion.
Exactly.
Carry on. But every time something comes up from the Snyder Cut, he needs to put something up on his Twitter. He needs to bait the people. He needs to put out some sort of, look at me, making fun of it. It's like, dude, you know what? It's so unprofessional. Like, especially as a comic book writer. And it's like, you know what? Who knows? One day your paths might cross with Zack, and you're putting out stuff like this all the time. And that for me was just like, I just don't like seeing that. Like, you know what? Just let the fans enjoy it. If you've got no interest in it, it's cool. Carry on with your life, man. I have absolutely no interest in another Fantastic Four book from Dan Slott. And that's just my opinion. But you know what? I'm not going to go out there and say, like, you know what? This Fantastic Four is the worst thing. I just drop it from my pull list. That's it. That's a reality. And you know what? I'm like, it's cool. If somebody else might enjoy it, I'm not going to say this guy's a bad writer because I don't think he is. I'm just not personally enjoying this stuff. And that's cool. And that's again what I say is like, why are people shitting on somebody else because they're enjoying it? And that's the thing that I just don't understand. And I know we'll discuss it a bit later because, like, I'm getting worked up here. I'm keeping it for later already. Yeah, that's it.
I know it's really tough, especially because, like, you're on the side of like where you are much more tapped into the culture than I am because you write about it, but. And I, kind of look at things from the outside and as more as just a fan. But it really sucks because we are kind of middle of the road people where it's kind of like, if I like something, cool. And if I don't like something, cool. It's okay. It's okay to enjoy something. It's okay to not enjoy something. But just because you don't enjoy it, it doesn't mean you have to make other people not enjoy it.
The most important thing that we're missing, and we haven't even discussed it, is like how the Snyder Cut actually raised a whole lot of money for suicide prevention. And it was something, it was huge that they did. And I think, it always goes away from that. And everybody seems to ignore it, like the good that it's done. And I think that's like the fundamental thing, whether you want to watch the movie or not, you cannot deny that it's had a very good effect. And it's opened up a communication channel between, fans and, especially studios. We kind of overlook these things because everyone's always saying, oh no, but fans shouldn't have, a say in how a movie's made and how IP is handled. And I kind of agree to a certain point. Like, yes, we do need to let creators create. I'm absolutely on board with that. But at the same time, if the studio is hampering a creative's vision, if the studio is messing with the franchise or the IP for whatever reason it is, I think it is the responsibility of fans to say, hey, listen, these characters are in the public domain. These characters belong to everyone. You might have the rights and the license to distribute things, but you're getting this wrong. Let us see this version. We really want to see it. And I think that that's what I appreciate about the Snyder Cut. Yeah, not everyone will like it. Fine, whatever. It's cool. There's lots of stuff out there for you, and it's great. I mean, you can go watch Superman Returns. You can go watch original Christopher Reeve movies. You can even go watch, Superman and Lois. It's coming on the CW. Whatever you want to watch. You got options out there.
Right.
To kind of, shit on somebody to say, oh, well, I'm excited about this. Yeah, it's not cool. But yeah, moving along. We've seen some cool stuff so far. There's been some, it's been coming for a while. I mean, like even since Justice League came out, Zack has been showing us some behind the scenes images and some stuff from his own version of it. What do you think so far of what you've seen? What has been the thing for you that you thought, oh, wow, that's really cool. That's something you want to see?
Oh, man. It's funny because like I keep going back to the trailer because I feel like I keep, I guess, getting a little bit more out of it. Like, I guess I'm slow. You know what I mean? Like some people can watch a trailer and just like digest it all immediately. I'm like, let me give it like 10 watches and then maybe I got it all. You know what I mean? So it's like I have to keep going back to the trailer. I mean, first and foremost is seeing Darkseid. I mean, the fact that he opens with that is huge to me. I'm like, oh, just that alone shows that it's the movie that we wanted. Is because we all wanted to see Darkseid. You know what I mean? And then there's, a lot of people like to say like, oh, Darkseid, he's the DC Thanos and whatever. It's kind of like, let's cut the comparisons for one. It's like, let Marvel live in its own world and let DC live in its own, regardless of how alike they are. Let's just enjoy what it is. we're getting to see Darkseid, which is who we wanted to see. I mean, this is like the top tier, cream of the crop bad guy. And the fact that he's in the flick, I mean, who knows how long he's going to be in the movie for, but he's in it. And that's what we wanted to see. That in and of itself raises the stakes. No shade on Steppenwolf, no shade. But as fans, when we see Darkseid, we go, oh snap, shit's about to go down. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the stakes are instantly raised. And I think that's really fantastic. The fact that it shows that it looks like there's going to be a little bit more character development stuff. My favorite is just that one little clip, and I want to see how that plays out, is where you see Barry save that one, like kind of, when he saves Iris from, I guess it's like a car accident or whatever it is. But the fact that they show that just little snippet, that could just be an extra 5 minutes of the flick. I mean, whatever. But seeing that is like, oh yes, now we get to see a little bit more of Barry and his stakes because he doesn't have his own movie yet. You know what I mean? So we don't know where he's at. Clearly, they're staying very true to his origin story, which is great. But now we get to see a little bit more of that. We get to see a little bit more why Cyborg is so his isolation and how it really affects him. So it looks like we're going a little deeper on all these characters because Victor, like, it's said that he feels like he's disconnected from everything because he's this like crazy mother box Frankenstein humanoid now. But the fact that they even show it, like when he's just looking outside at the kids playing and just him digesting that as a human, how he lives in this weird kind of in between alien, in between human is pretty amazing. So the fact that there's going to be more character development, at least that I can tell, I think is huge. And as an actor, I mean,
definitely, man. And
that stuff is amazing.
It's so interesting you mentioned Darkseid because that for me is also like one of the things I wanted to see. Because I mean, he's mentioned in the original like theatrical cut, but it's like briefly, but we don't actually see him. And interesting, you say the comparison between him and Thanos because Darkseid actually came first. He was actually created 2 years before Thanos. So it's like, who copied who?
Right.
Exactly.
And people like to ignor that. So they like to ignore that.
I'm super excited to see because it looks like it's a bit of the history between, Thanos, obviously, and the Amazonian warriors and probably the Green Lanterns, that whole big battle scene that we saw, like that history lesson that they had in Justice League. I'm hoping to see that explored and see something a little bit bigger. At the same time, I agree. The whole thing with Barry Allen is going to be great because, I mean, the actress Kiersey Clemons, I think she was just removed from the movie like for no reason, like she was just taken away, and I'm
which is a shame. And as an actor, like that's such a shame.
There's incredible stuff out there, like in indie movies, and she's built up quite a name. So like people probably think, that sucks. We cut her out, and I mean we don't know if she's going to appear in Flash as well. So it'll be cool to see if they dive into that a bit more. And the cyborg thing is completely like I'm on board here because I remember when Zack spoke about it, the movie. Before it was released, way back when, and he said that Cyborg was the central part. He was a heartbeat of the story, and I find that's going to be compelling because it's going to be great to see, like especially a new character, like relatively new in the sense of that we haven't had a film about him, how he brings everybody, how he's a central piece, and as you say, sense of isolation and. It looks like he loses his dad as well in the Snyder Cut, which we kind of see. So it's going to be very interesting to see if that actually is played out. And then obviously for me, it's the black suit Superman. I mean, that's that's a geeky moment.
Yes. Oh, that is so geeky. I still have it at the issue when he came out with that suit. I still have it like in one of my comics somewhere. So when I saw that,
exactly.
I was like,
the thing is,
thank you.
It's sad that he doesn't have a mullet. I mean, that's the only thing. But but it's 2020.
Oh God,
it's 2020, so we don't know about if this mullet is still gonna fly because it's like I don't know. We don't want to inspire any fashion trends like that again. Let's leave it in the past. That's it.
I know, right? Yeah, but really.
Those are the
bring it
things
back
that I'm super looking forward to. But now, obviously, we got to get to the juicy part of this podcast. It's the title here. It's a juicy part here. And now we've discussed what we like. We've discussed, how we felt about it, how it was cool seeing, people get excited about it. And also, we touched upon it, but, about like people just, complaining about it. But why do you think there is all this hatred for the Snyder Cut, and specifically Zack Snyder in general? What do you think it is that gets people so worked up and riled up?
I think, for me personally, I feel like it's just easy to not like him. I don't know why. I feel like it's easy to pick on him. And I think it stems from just his early films. And the thing is now, full transparency, regardless of how the movies, how overall critics take them, I am a Snyder fan. I absolutely loved Watchmen. I thought Watchmen was awesome. And I'm a fan. And yes, I am a fan of the book. I read the graphic novel before I ever saw the film many years prior. And many times over before the film came out, and I still very much enjoyed it. I thought it was cast wonderfully. I thought it was directed fine. I thought it was good. I mean, no movie is perfect. Can things have been fixed? Sure. Yeah. But I still enjoyed it. 300 was cool. You know what I mean? I thought Sucker Punch was fine. Yeah. A little heady. You know what I mean? Because if I were to dip right into my brain and create something and expect the masses to understand it, you probably won't. And that's what I feel like Sucker Punch was. It was a direct tap to his brain and how he, how his metaphors translate to the overall point of the film. You know what I mean? So a lot of people aren't going to get it. It's going to go above their head. It's going to be weird. And I thought Sucker Punch was fine, but it is the kind of movie where you have to, kind of digest a bit and really look into more. There's a lot more substance there than people make out for. And the thing is, because of how Sucker Punch was and its performance and the fact that Watchmen is such a massive property. Yeah. Because obviously Alan Moore is just, the guy's a god among men when it comes to writing these fantastic graphic novels, that anytime somebody touches it, it's like you either do it to the T or it's completely, ruined. And if Alan Moore even bats an eye that he didn't like it, then everybody follows suit and says they don't like it. Because people are scared to have the opinion that they enjoyed it. Why? Because those that don't like it are so much louder. They just love to scream their hatred for it. And people don't want to feel like they're isolated in what they enjoy. So then they just agree and say, I didn't like it either. Because it's easy, So, and I feel like that's kind of what happened with all of Zack Snyder's properties, is that they become easy to hate. And not because whatever he did was particularly bad. It's just people kind of carry it over. Not to mention the fact that people live in a comparison. It's always going to be compared to Marvel. And unfortunately, I have to place the blame on critics, because a lot of critics love to compare, which is silly. Agreed. It's like, that is not how you review a movie. You don't review a movie by comparing it to another.
Because, I remember back when I did media studies back in university, and was one of the things that our professor told us, and he said that the way that a lot of things is, as you say, these comparisons, is the easiest way to kind of show people, when you want to show them something. And he explained, especially with the likes of politics, because that was something we covered quite a lot. And he said that you always find these images of politicians, it looks like boxing posters. Like he says, if you look at the old Muhammad Ali posters and George Foreman, it's always comparing them. And you always see them the
Rumble in the Jungle,
to trigger something in your mind. And he actually said to us once, he says, can you actually name any policies of any of these politicians? Can you name any of the and everyone's no. He's like, so then why would you vote for him? And everybody's like, what? Okay, this is interesting. And I always find it translates to other media as well, because that's the same thing. It's always a comparison. It's Marvel. It's it's DC. Oh, but Marvel did this. And I'm going to be honest here. I agree. I agree with you 100%. I'm a fan of Snyder's movies. I think he's got a very distinct visual style. I think that he's done things that he's got a very good eye for visuals, and I think that he tries things. He goes for ambitious ideas, and yes, sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't. But at the same time, he's a creative risk taker, and as a creative, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Because I don't. yeah, I don't want to go and watch a movie that's like safe, like everything's safe. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, that is how I feel about a lot of Marvel movies. I'll enjoy them. But
yeah,
but they're very safe. You go, you know exactly what you're going to get. It's like, I'll never forget when I went to go watch Avengers, in 2012. And I remember I just gone to watch a Dark Knight. So I was around about the same time or something. I remember Dark Knight Rises. And I remember walking out of Dark Knight Rises, like, yeah, that was cool. I was like, okay, it wasn't as good as a Dark Knight, but I was like, that was a really cool movie. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, there were a couple things, but I was like, I was hyped, when I walked out of it. I went to go watch the Avengers. Right. And I walked out of that movie. I was like, oh, this was cool. That's how I felt. I enjoyed myself. But I did not expect this thing to be the hype that it was $1 billion later. Like, I really did not see that. I thought to myself, like, and I've gone and revisited the movie several times over. I've gone to see, have I missed something? And because I just don't understand, like, how that was $1 billion movie, how it shaped, this whole like pop culture thing. I felt like I missed something out there. But at the end of the day, I figured out it's like, it's like popcorn movie. It's like candy, you enjoy it. It's feeding it into your brain. It's a sugar high. And it's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I find is like with Snyder's movies, it's like, it makes you think, like when you actually go have a look at some of the symbolism of Batman versus Superman, even some of the composition of the shots, when you start reading through like, director's notes and seeing certain things, you think, oh, wow, okay, this is a lot deeper than what I even anticipate. And I think it's sometimes, I get this sort of feeling from a lot of critics as well, and that they think it's pretentious. But at the same time, then they're sitting there like, ready to, whip out their dicks to the next Tarantino movie, effectively. And I'm like thinking, he's like king of pretentiousness. I mean, like, I know I'll get a lot of hate for that.
So true.
But he's a great director still. Like, what he does, I'm
right, fantastic. But when you start a movie with, 25 minutes of just dialogue between two actors, that is so unbelievably pretentious. Because, you know what I mean, compared to like anything else. Because I mean, just the intro to Inglourious Bastards, which is a great film. But just that first chunk with Hans Landa and the farmer, I mean, that went on extremely long.
And I mean, they give a lot of credit, they give a lot of leeway to like the likes of, Tarantino. And other thing, Joss Whedon, perfect example. Joss Whedon has been delivering cookie cutter movies for ages. Like, yes, okay, he did Buffy, he did, Firefly, and cool, awesome. But this guy's been riding on that success for so many years. And now suddenly we've got all this like drama that came out of it, like of production, all these accusations that have been leveled against him. Okay, if they're true or not, we don't know. They're still investigating it. But all of this stuff, and they will still give Joss Whedon the time of day. They will still cover him. But Zack Snyder's like, like he murdered your entire family. And I'm like, what's going on? I was like, I mean, everybody who's worked with Zack has said that he's great, he's professional, it's fun. He said it's like no actor's come away from his set and said, I hated working with that guy. This guy's trash. But yet amongst critics, that is the same thing. And this is what brings me to like another point is that a while back, I had an exchange with another journalist on social media, and it was about the Snyder Cut. And he was very upset about it. He's like, yeah, no, we're rewarding, the bad element of fandom by giving them this. I'm like, what do you mean? I said to him, like, to be honest with you, this is like, if you don't dig it, you don't need to watch it. Like, it's cool, like, it's your choice. I mean, if you didn't enjoy it, fine. No, but I can never forgive the Snyder bros for going after my colleagues. I'm like, but remember something, my friend. Your colleagues baited people. It's the same thing that happens now. When you post up a meme of like the Justice League and you basically shitting on that fan base and calling everybody like, MAGA heads or whatever, like all the time because they like the movie, you're baiting people. I've seen some of the stuff out there. I've seen some of the comments out there, and they keep doing the rounds. And the thing is, you got to own your shit on social media. If you're baiting people out there and you're baiting people to come and comment, if you're looking for trouble, you're going to get it. And then when you get it, you can't say I'm a victim.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, it's silly. It really is silly because you're playing into that negativity to get clicks, and that's not cool. You know what I mean? You don't poke the bears, and then when they come at you, you get upset that they attacked. It's like, listen, Zack Snyder, sure, he's a guy with a very, very unique vision, and truth be told, we need people like that. He is somebody who's only going to get better the more movies that he does. And I don't see the Snyder Cut as like, quote unquote, a win to the toxic fandom. I don't believe that's what it is. Because I feel like that's, now this is going into video game territory. I feel like that's what happened with the Mass Effect series and the way that ended. And when that ended, the toxic fandom won, and then the team had to go back and create a whole new ending for the game because fans were upset. While I agree, they did not need to do that. The Snyder Cut coming out is a win for Zack Snyder, I feel. Because him as a creative, he's like, awesome. Now I get to take the time. I've done what I had to do. I've grieved. I've moved on. And now I can finally finish creating the vision that I originally had in mind. And I think as a creative, that is an amazing thing. I think that's an amazing opportunity. And I think we shouldn't look at it as a fans one kind of thing. I think the fans are benefiting from it. But I think that this is a big win for
the thing
Zack
is,
Snyder
we're also going to get
creative.
to points like, how do you define toxic fandom? You can't just define an entire fan base as toxic. That's like, it's like any population.
Exactly.
You're going to have some people that are pretty cool and some people that are not. That's a reality of life. And I think it's the same thing with fandom. You're going to have
100%.
people who are a little bit over the top, who will send you threats and stuff online. And, it's with everything, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's with everything. That's with any medium that's popular.
Still, that doesn't take away from it. You can't say, oh, well, Star Wars is just toxic and I will not support Star Wars because of it. It's like, no, it's like, you got to remove the elements. Yes, exactly. I mean, you can't reward certain behaviors in the sense that, like, you don't give certain people platforms for it. That's fine. I get that. But at the same time, it's not everyone who's toxic, and that's what I find is very difficult. You're painting everyone with a brush.
Yes.
Like the same brush, you're tarring them and saying, oh, yeah, you know what? You're all this, you're all Snyder bros, you're all toxic, you're all this. I disagree with that because everyone's different. And I mean, I'll use this as an example. In South Africa, we don't necessarily have as much of a wild sort of mainstream popular culture going on as in the US. So when the likes of these Zack Snyder movies came out, we never got really like the same sort of hatred that what he got in the US press as an example. And that's why for me, sometimes it is very difficult to relate to kind of look at it and go back and read stuff. I'm like, but wait, like, I don't remember this coming out. Like when Watchmen came out, I went to go watch Watchmen and I remember seeing some of the reviews and, they were pretty, I think they were kind of accurate. Some people liked it, other people didn't, but it wasn't like this polar opposite sort of thing, like it's either great or it's terrible. It was just like, it was well balanced, criticism and feedback. And I was just like, okay, cool. So that's why when he was announced for Man of Steel, I'll never forget, like one of my friends got to watch it before I did. And he told me like, man, this movie is great. Your mind's gonna be blown away. Like the stuff that they've done is like really cool. It's the director did Watchmen and 300. I was like, oh, wow, that's cool, man. Like I'm keen. And we went to go watch it the next weekend. I hadn't seen a single review. And I walked out of that movie and I was like, for me, that was the best Superman movie I'd seen. Because I just felt like, I connected with the character a lot more. And I know a lot of people, disagree about this and they say, no, it didn't capture the Superman's like, Boy Scout sort of way that he's always good. I just...
Right. The apple pie character.
And maybe just for me because I enjoy flawed characters a little bit more. And maybe just, one of those personal things, I'm like, I really enjoy this sort of take on Superman. I'm like, okay, this is a guy that could literally destroy the entire earth if he wanted to. And he's struggling with his power. He's struggling to adapt to his new life. I just thought, wow, this is actually like, I kind of think of, for example, of like when you go to a new school, like when you're young and you walk in there and you feel different from everyone around you and you don't know how to act. You don't know what to do. You don't know, should I be myself? Shouldn't I be myself? And I kind of got this sort of vibe from it, to try and understand. I mean, I remember when I went into primary school, as an example, that my parents are Portuguese. And I grew up in a Portuguese home, and Portuguese was the first language I ever learned. And I learned English like through my next door neighbor. Like, we just played like Ninja Turtle toys, and that's how I learned English. But I remember when I went into effectively first grade or grade 1 here, like I went into school and like my English wasn't so great, but like I didn't know how to relate to a lot of these kids because, basically from the home that I came from, it was slightly different. I kind of felt like an outsider. And, it was just like, there were good elements and there were bad elements to it. But, the thing is, you met your friends and you kind of realize, okay, cool, I can belong here, sense of belonging. And I think maybe that is why I associate with Man of Steel. you're kind of like, you feel like almost like a foreigner coming in. And that for me was just something that I found like was very powerful for the story. And I thought Snyder captured that very well. And yeah, I mean, okay, the killing of the Zod thing, I understood the reasons why. It's fine. You know, I didn't really care. It's like, I mean, it's like, it's like, okay, Zod's dead. Who cares? You know, there's going to be other villains. I mean, we're all here for Lex Luthor anyways. It's reality, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I actually really I enjoyed that. I overall I did enjoy Man of Steel. It took me a couple of viewings because again, like I said, I'm slow. So for me, it's hard to process like a proper opinion unless I watch it a couple of times. And after watching it a few times, like I began to understand his overall point. And it wasn't so much about like, let me make sure I make a proper Superman. He was telling the story of, like you said, a flawed human who is not human. You know, he was wrestling with an issue that no one can associate with and at the same time absolutely associate with. Because nobody can say, oh, well, I don't know what it's like to be all powerful. But you absolutely know what it's like to want to fit in and be that outsider. Anyone who's ever been in school knows what it's like to be an outsider at some point, whether it be kindergarten to, you know, to high school, university, whatever the case may be. You always have that feeling of, maybe I don't belong. And he is tasked with that feeling. And at the same time, having the powers of a god. And in killing Zod and his reaction to it, I had goosebumps. I got goosebumps right now talking about it. Because when he just does it, because he had to. He felt that this is what he had to do. He had no other alternative. It was either him or these humans. Because that's what they were, but he didn't see them as humans. He saw them as fellow man. They were his people. That's such an amazing moment because who he's fighting is one of his people. And he saved now his new people from his people. And then just that scream of conflict that he had when he was done was just incredible to me. That when people were like, oh, it's a stupid Superman will never kill. I'm like, we're missing the point. You're focusing on the character, but we're talking about the overall idea of what it is to be human from the aspect of someone who's a god. And I think that was incredible. I
completely agree. And I think that's one thing that I sometimes have a fundamental problem with in comic book movies is that you can quote history as much as you want because there's different versions of different characters like throughout. I mean, you cannot compare the Golden Age, the Silver Age to, modern times. There are different versions of characters that exist, different origin stories. And I think it's like you can pick and choose what sort of, what you want to do with it. And I think, the fandom especially, and this is something which I've always said, you can kind of spot someone who doesn't read comic book because they're just looking on Google Images to, rationalize their thoughts, looking for the first thing. And I always find that's, with Superman, I've always struggled with him as a character, to be honest with you, because when I was small as a kid, I was like, I got into him quite a lot because, here's this really good, really good goody two-shoes there effectively. And, he does the right thing all the time. And it's like, he embodies a wholesome sort of character, which is great. As I got older, I thought to myself, all right, but I don't see enough conflict with this character. I don't see enough going on. Like, I don't see enough. And I always felt like I wanted something more. And I found like, recently I started getting into Superman a lot more. And I started finding that there are stories out there that I just missed completely because I was probably an idiot and I didn't look for it. But, I found that Snyder got me interested in the character again. And I think that works. Like, because I was like, okay, there's something different. There's a conflicted character. He's still good, but he's just like this. There's a lot going on. And I found, when you write stories a lot more personal, there's got a personal element to it. And I find that I can relate to that. And that's what I enjoyed about it. And this brings me to my next point.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of comic book movies get away with more things than Snyder does. That is my personal belief, because I look at, for example, and I mean, I'm going to pick on this because I can, is Avengers Endgame. And I'll tell you why. What I think is a problem with that. it's the best-selling movie of all time, if I'm not correct, and like the highest-grossing movie of all time, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that is the one. Okay, inflated for adjustment, whatever. It's the highest-grossing movie of all time.
Yeah.
That movie was 3 hours long, and it could have been cut down to 90 minutes. Because there were patches of that movie, and I'll tell you why. Because I went to go watch this movie in 4D. All right, we've got 4D here, and I'd already gone to see it, so I knew what was happening. But for about an hour and a half, there was nothing happening in that movie. Those chairs didn't do anything. I literally had more action coming next to me from this little kid next to me who was like, kicking his feet against a chair, and then the whole movie. And I was like thinking to myself, okay. And I enjoy the outcome of Avengers Endgame. Like, don't get me wrong, that the battle sequence at the end was amazing. But I found there was a lot of nothing going on. I found I was bored in that movie. And people are telling me they were bored in Batman vs. Superman, which was 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'm like, are you kidding me? Did you actually go and watch Avengers Endgame? And the other one, Civil War. This fundamental problem here. Okay, we always laugh at the Martha line for Batman vs. Superman. Martha, save Martha. Everyone laughs at it's so funny. Their mother's got Sam. It's existed for years. Literally, this is not a new thing. But you will defend to me Civil War where Bucky kills Tony Stark's parents when he's basically a zombie. And then Tony Stark, some lines like, you killed my mom. I was like, geez, are we looking at Days of Our Lives here or what? It literally was something out of the plot Days of Our Lives. The way the acting and then suddenly, I'm like, dude, the guy was a zombie. He killed your parents when he was zombified. Do you not you've literally spent an entire movie or more understanding that he was brainwashed and now you want to kill the guy. And you are the smartest guy on the planet. Right. We're supposed to understand, okay, yes, he's emotional, understandable, that's fine. Your parents died, you figured out, you killed them. But it's literally the same thing. It's parents, they're involved. And Captain America's Civil War gets defended. And, Batman and Superman gets slandered for the same thing.
Right. Yeah, no, very true. Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's actually funny that you bring up Civil War because I was talking about that to my buddy. I think it was Monday. And I told him about that. I was like, it's so funny. Civil War, I enjoyed it for what it was. But truth be told, that's a really terribly named film. It had nothing to do with the Civil War at all. The actual storyline was so intriguing. It was so great. And they wasted it on a movie about Tony being pissed that Bucky in his brainwashed mode killed his parents.
If you go read the source material, I remember reading it even before Civil War came out, and I even have the novelization as well. If I'm not mistaken, it was Peter David who wrote it. And I remember reading this, I was like, this is really great, Spider-Man and masks, and it's about, choosing sides, and it had the X-Men, it had Daredevil, it had everyone. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And it divides the whole Marvel universe, they've got to choose sides. And then you see this version on screen, and you're like, okay, it's just a way to get to, it's just to get to, the Avengers against each other for a little bit of time, then suddenly they're back, and and then no consequences, the next, basically the next Avengers movie, when we get it, suddenly, they make peace between Captain America and Tony Stark, and, he's cool with, Bucky as well. It's all right,
Right, yeah. It's cool. Join our team. Don't worry, you come with parents. It is what it is.
There's just different standards out there. And I've watched some of these Marvel movies out there. I've seen some of them come out. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, it's enjoyable. It's serviceable. I'll go, it's a popcorn movie. But do you not want something more? Do you not want something to challenge you? And this is the thing. It's I don't know. The comic book genre doesn't need to be dumbed down. And I know Alan Moore's going to hate me for this, but I know he's been talking about that, he regrets the likes of making, the Killing Joke, and he regrets making Watchmen because he wanted to flip it on its head, and he thinks, comic books are just for, effectively children, that's what they were for the middle class, and it was a form of entertainment because you couldn't get anything else. And I get that, and I get where it came from, but the medium has evolved. And I still find that the most passionate comic book fans you will find are probably teenagers that actually pick up comic books and read them, the teenagers onwards, and people who've got a history with it. I think the younger generation is struggling to get into it, and it's because they've just got so much distractions out there. They've got, the likes of the TV series and movies. It's just too much, and I think that the medium has lost a bit of its sheen to them. But at the same time, I find that there's so much source material there and what's been written and stuff that's there you can pick up on, and I think there's a lot that you want to see. Especially think of a story like Court of Owls. and I've always said this, like, you think about adapting something like that, and I believe, the Batman might be adapting it, they might be diving into it a bit, but you look at something like that, you think, wow, you can have darker storylines. You can have storylines a little bit deeper than, okay, I'm a superhero and I'm going to defeat this bad guy now, because he's coming to New York City and he threatened to put a bomb in a building. Okay, cool, that's fine. Those movies can exist, I don't have a problem with it, but give me something else. Give me something a bit deeper. Like, give me something that explores like the lore and the mythology behind his characters. Give me something that's different.
Yeah, 100% agree. Because like the way I see the Marvel movies, I kind of compare them to the action movies of the 90s. They were easy to watch. You didn't have to think about them. Like Avengers is basically like Commando. Like, it's cool, and you're like, cool, I had a good time. Things blew up, and I'm happy. The good guys won. It's that simple, and it's like, cool. That absolutely serves its function. I like that. Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder are looking to add more to that. And give, add more gravity to these characters. And it's not just like, quote unquote, reinventing them for the sake of reinvention and for the sake of doing something new, but it's for the sake of making them more, making them easier to relate to, even though we'll never be in those positions and never be these people. Because, like, truth be told, like, if you watch Iron Man or the Avengers, is there any of those characters that you can really relate to on like a human level? No, not at all.
Yeah.
While Man of Steel, you can absolutely relate to what Superman is going through. You can absolutely relate, like somebody who maybe even older can relate to what Bruce Wayne is going through, because he is older and he is tired and he is trying to do what's right. You know what I mean? Like, there's something there for everyone. And not to mention, DC has probably, to me, the best showcase of powerful women on film at this point with the Amazons.
Agreed.
I mean, Wonder Woman is just phenomenal, a phenomenal character overall. And besides her, just the Amazonian women culture, like, I mean, just behind the scenes stuff, when you see how these women train just to be Amazons on screen for 7, 8, 10 minutes at a time, they really like get into it. Like, they really get into how these women do their thing. And I think that's fantastic for young girls to watch, to be able to go and see, Justice League and be like, whoa, look at all these like badass chicks. That's so cool. I want to be like them. Like, there's a little bit of everything there for everyone. And being the dad of 3 daughters, like, I so appreciate what DC has done with Wonder Woman, more so than what Marvel has done with Black Widow, unfortunately, which I feel like she's been shafted.
Yeah, I mean, and we've just seen her basically being used as a tool, like, to be a love interest for Hawkeye, Bruce Banner, like, kind of hopping between Captain America tease. And
it's like, come on now.
It's low hanging fruit, just like it's terrible, like, writing in that sense.
Yes,
and I
mean, it's lazy. It's lazy writing.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll close off with this. What I will say about, like, why I think they get away with a lot of stuff. We've got this sort of mentality. There are a lot of people say, oh, keep the politics out of comics, that whole movement that's going. And I disagree with that, because comics have always been political. They've always addressed real life issues. They've always integrated, like,
you got Captain America punching a Nazi. Like, come on, guys.
Exactly. Yeah. But the irony is that people who defend that, who say that, they're the ones that want fantastical movies and things that don't address real life issues. Mm-hmm. Like the journalists who criticize, the likes of Batman vs Superman for addressing what the fear is of a man in a post 9/11 world, or what would happen if something collapses. They're the ones that are basically saying, no, comic books should be political, but then they want the Marvel movies that basically like touch on nothing. Right. And that's the irony there. And I just think that's just something for people to ponder, and it's something for us to discuss probably another time. But Rob,
totally.
Thank you so much for joining this conversation.
Thanks for having me, man. This is great.
It was really awesome. And for the peeps who want to follow you and get to know a little bit more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. That's probably the easiest place to find me, but I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm pretty easy to find. You could just @ me at Robb Moreira VO. Robb is spelled with 2 B's. And my last name is Moreira. It is Portuguese, but I am not.
Yeah, I should know that. That's a funny thing. I do know a lot of Moreiras as well. So
yeah, we're all over. We're all over South America, all over, clearly all over Portugal. So yeah.
Thanks again, Rob. I really appreciate it. And to everyone else, please do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and let us know what you think of the podcast. And, give us some topics you want us to talk about. If there's something you really are passionate about that you think you'd like to hear us chat about, give it a shot. Until next time, guys, thank you.